Tabletop Talk. Here we talk about games and all kinds of ridiculous stuff. So lately we mostly have been talking a lot about Dungeons and Dragons, and I know they've got the new game coming out, so we'll probably cover that in a future episode here once we've had enough details dropped out that we each can form an opinion on it. But I was wondering, what kind of games are you guys interested in aside from D&D? There's a lot of tabletop role-playing games out there. Does anyone have any that they are curious about that they either have not played or they've heard a lot about?
Wait, there are other games? There are other tabletop games we can play? Producer Chris,
we really gotta let him out of the basement sometime.
Producer Chris, you said I get to see the sun someday. Does that mean I also get to see another, core book of a different game?
I guess it does.
Oh, thanks, Producer Chris. You're always the best.
Master has given Jeremy a sock.
I'd also like to point out that in pretty much every episode up till now, to have Producer Chris's voice on the pod, we've had to hand him one of our microphones, and he now has his own dedicated microphone.
We are moving up in the world. We are moving up, boys.
We are slowly moving up. We also soundproofed the place, so...
I didn't even realize that. It did sound a little different.
Yeah,
excellent.
And I know you guys can't see this, but Producer Chris has a setup. He kind of looks like, Howard Stern, where he's got this cool, he's got a cool microphone, he's got his headphones on, and he's watching us, the fools, act. And then every now and then, he'll just add his flavor in.
Throw a couple pieces of popcorn at us. See what we do.
So before we get started, how was everybody's week?
It was good.
Yeah, I've had better. Me and my kids were all sick, so yeah, I'm sure you guys know how that goes.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, man. What about you, Rick?
We did a garage sale this last weekend along with most of the community that we all live in.
Nice.
So it was nice, made enough that we feel like it was more or less worth all of the effort that it went into selling stuff, but for the most part, we moved a lot of inventory out of our house, which is the goal.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good. My wife and I, we went and took a little trip down to the ocean. We were going to go camp with a couple friends. I forgot that I already had signed up for work on a Sunday, and so we were originally going to be going Friday, Saturday, and then coming back late Sunday, kind of lazily coming back. And then I got an email Thursday afternoon saying, hey, yeah, we'll see you all at 8:30 a.m. on Sunday. And I looked at it going, oh no, what have I done?
Oh no.
What have I done? So we had to come back a day early. So we planned on coming back on Saturday night. But it's so funny because up here it was in the 70s and sunny, and out at the ocean it was 60 and cloudy. And then the day we were going to leave Saturday, we were planning on leaving maybe 8, maybe 9, and it started raining at 3 o'clock, and so we're all just eating at a picnic table, getting dumped on. The rain is going into our food because all of us were like, Katie and I, we thought, oh, we don't need to bring our little canopy, and then the other couple that we were camping with, they're like, oh yeah, we don't need to bring ours. I left my rain jacket at home too. I was way too optimistic because when we left, I was wearing a tank top. I was wearing shorts. I was feeling great. And then when we got there, I was like, what have I done? And this was my idea. The whole thing was my idea.
Oh, no. So it appears Jeremy needs to make notes in real life as well as on the game.
Yeah, the calendars become very important.
Oh, no. I've had an okay week. That's not true. It's been awful. All of my favorite franchises, I feel, are getting destroyed. I know we just talked about the Acolyte and all, and I know we have differing opinions. We're not here to talk about that, but I am livid.
Yes, and I am not livid because I love the show. And you can get in the comments on that.
At this point, everyone unsubscribed because, the biggest thing is almost everyone I've seen has agreed the Acolyte's awful. Until I've talked to the two of you.
Yeah, so not everyone you've seen.
I just said until I talked to the two of you. Therefore, I'm still right.
Starting off this pod real hot today. Real hot. You can feel the heat at home, everyone.
Feel the tension.
That's why I have no sleeves.
Do you ever have sleeves?
No, it's always a gun show.
It actually, the fun fact of that is actually he buys all of his clothes with sleeves, but they just burn off.
Yeah.
That does make sense.
Perfectly seared and stitched around the edges too. It's actually quite
Yeah,
remarkable.
that's my wife's biggest complaint. She's like, I buy you long sleeve shirts and then the sleeves are gone as soon as you wear it.
Well, you just tell her like, "Well, I was doing bicep curls and they just popped right off."
Oh no. Okay. So yeah, today we're going to talk about other tabletop games. Who would like to go first?
I would like to start because tabletop game lets me live out a fantasy of being a 1920s flapper girl who goes insane trying to investigate the old gods in the game Call of Cthulhu.
There we
so,
go.
I mean, I don't really feel like I need to say anymore. That's amazing. But I love the mythos. I love the story, the H.P. Lovecraft and all that. So, and I know, Kyle, I've talked to you about this, but yeah, I'm super stoked on that. And I was going through some of the rules, looking at the skills. I mean, there's like a library skill, and yeah, the whole thing about it looks just pretty awesome.
I can tell you,
Yeah.
it is awesome.
Yeah, that's something I would definitely like to play.
Very awesome. Producer Chris has played that one, and I think it's the only one he's actively asked me if we were going to play again at some point.
I will totally jump in on that next game whenever
For
that
as
happens.
problematic now, like retroactively, as Lovecraft was as a human.
But almost everyone at that time was. That's the hard part.
It was a different era.
I was going to say, it's a different era, and don't get me wrong. Yeah, the stuff he writes is awful when it comes to other people.
But the staying power of what he created is remarkable. Like, I have the full collection of like all of his works up in my library at home. Like, I'm with Trevin. Like, if he wouldn't have picked Call of Cthulhu, I absolutely would have picked that, because going crazy searching for the old gods.
I know, how cool is that?
Like,
That's amazing.
we awoke the sleeping one, and now like existence is wiped out. Like, just cosmic horror and like eldritch stuff is super up my alley, and it is 100% the type of game that I would just wear a trench coat, like the Indiana Jones style of hat, and let's go find some weird stuff in Arkham.
Oh yeah.
And I love the idea that it's like, even if you win, you still lose.
Yeah, that's
So you stopped like an eldritch horror from coming onto the plane, but the cost of it, basically, it's like maybe one player went home to their family and was able to live out the rest of their lives like with a secret. Someone else is in an asylum, another person's dead. No one knows what happened. Jeremy's character, he just went missing. You know?
Yeah, well, he did mention the Acolyte, and he loved it.
But then if it wasn't that one, it's kind of fitting actually for where we are in the Pacific Northwest. My second one was going to be Shadowrun, set here in the Tacoma, Seattle area, like a cyberpunk kind of one. And I still remember it was 1993, so I was 6. So on my SNES, I got the Shadowrun game, and I remember just playing with that. Well, I just remember playing that, and yeah, I never knew it was in like an actual RPG tabletop till. Yeah, probably a couple years ago.
And what's Shadowrun?
It's like you're set in like a cyberpunk kind of world. Like you have different, and in this one, there's from what I read, there's not any classes. Like you pretty much go into it, and you can build your skills in whatever you want. So you can be a decker, someone who goes and hacks into mainframes to do jobs. You know, it's kind of like a dystopian, that kind of a
Or you
setting.
could be like a technomancer, where it's like you can essentially, you don't use magic, but you can essentially possess vehicles and like computers and different things.
A quick little brief description of it is that it combines genres of cyberpunk, urban fantasy, and crime with occasional elements of conspiracy, horror, and detective fiction.
Jeez.
A little bit of everything.
It's essentially
literally-
was created to be like the opposite of D&D. It was meant to be essentially a futuristic version of it. Similar rule-wise and such, except for people who really like the dark, nitty-gritty, like, future landscape, but they don't want to go all the way to, like, the year 40,000 where everyone's just, like,
Everyone's horrible.
dying from awfulness.
That's fun. I mean, that kind of I love hearing about stuff like that, because it reminds me of so many times I'm like, yeah, well, I really love just like Tolkien fantasy, and then every now and then I'm like, well, yeah, I loved the movie Watchmen. I love this just weird, dark, gritty, like realistic in a superhero setting. Like, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen if people had powers.
I will say on a note, I assume we all agree Watchmen is great.
100%. Yep.
Rick was just nodding his head.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to look at him and like go.
No, I'm getting some notes on my picks.
No, you're
but
good.
yeah,
You're good.
No, but all iterations of the Watchmen, the comic series, the Zack Snyder movie, that really introduced, I think, most people to slow mo.
Yeah.
And then the re-edition of it as the TV show. That
Yeah, on HBO, right?
yeah, I really liked that. It was a little bit of a different take on it, but I really liked it.
Well, and I've liked the Justice League versus the Watchmen. That was a cool one. Batman versus Owlman. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
That's an interesting one. I'll go next. I think one of mine, and it's one Kyle and I have talked about before, is the Star Wars RPG.
I've never heard of it.
Okay, he just owns
I have
it.
the book sitting right by me, and I have like a bunch of digital copies of it that I sent over to Jeremy because I think we were talking about running one with your cousin, right?
Yeah, I run one with my my nephews. Honestly, maybe a few nieces. I have so many members in my family that love Star Wars, and some of my nephews and nieces have seen every single movie or TV show that has been released for Star Wars.
I'm on the same thing except for the Acolyte. I refuse. I do not like what they've been doing with it. I wasn't going to go into it, but you brought it up again.
Because I'm talking about Star Wars RPG. Anyway, I was saying like they've watched all the Clone Wars, Bad Batch, all the different ones, Clone Wars, the movie, that one.
They're really good, actually.
So because of that, I think it'd be really fun to run a game with that set, with that expansive knowledge that they already have. Like the buy-in's already there. So many times when you're like a DM, you're trying to find buy-in for players. And if you already know, like, oh, they already love the source content. They love the characters. They love the different aspects of Star Wars. And then you could actually run something within that. It sounds really fun.
So when it comes to that, is that one that you want to like learn to run for family, or is that one that you also want to play at some point?
Ooh, it's probably both. I think learning how to play would be a lot of fun with far less responsibility with the keeping with the lore, but running it would be a lot of fun because you could go, oh, okay, everyone's expecting us to do kind of a Jedi campaign. Well, we're actually doing this way on the outer rim, so let's start there.
Not once have I actually played a Jedi campaign in that. It's designed mostly to not be Jedi.
Well, then maybe we have to be only Jedi in Jedi land where there are no ordinaries, and then you meet an ordinary. You go, wait, you don't know how to use the Force?
Subvert our expectations by subverting the expectations.
Exactly. Where's your lightsaber? I don't have one. What? We've all been given them since birth. Where is your lightsaber?
I mean, you can't lose that, right? That's a huge no-no on the Jedi Council. The Jedi what?
Where's your kyber crystal? What?
Why are you wearing jeans?
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
Okay, so that might be it. We're all in and I don't think I'll anger any Star Wars fans right now when I say that this campaign would probably take place in, like, I don't know, Jedi land.
Well,
I'm
the description
trying
of
so
it,
hard not to jump this table right now.
The description of it
Our
almost
producer is crying
sounds
because he's like, there's going to be a murder on set and we're going to get such good ratings.
If you guys are familiar with the book series that became a TV show called The Magicians,
Yes.
Lev Garrison, it takes place in a world where a character is obsessed with a fictional world, and from the real world, he goes to this like fantasy land, but as just like a dude who was a grad student and learns magic and becomes like royalty. So it'd almost be like, oh, we're all transported into this thing we really like.
That sounds like
as now,
like in a whole genre of anime.
yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen any of those. Like that time I got reincarnated as a slime.
Yep.
There or Overlord is one too. There's
Sword
a
Art
lot.
Online.
Sword Art Online. That one though, at least is a video game they're in.
Yeah, but I was saying like you're just
but
going
no,
into
I agree,
the thing.
Yeah. Also, just who would pass the okay on that technology?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I think Star Wars RPG would be a ton of fun just because you already have something you love. And then you're just going, hey, maybe I'll be a character in there. And that sounds really cool. I mean, who hasn't already practiced their different forms of lightsaber combat?
I, as an ex
My wife
stage
hasn't told me to
combat
stop.
like teacher, I can tell you I have.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we already love the material and the buy-in's already there. Journey with me to Arda, if you will, because there are 2 different established Lord of the Rings RPGs out there.
There are.
To a shock of no one that I pick Lord of the Rings, by the way.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure if Rick, like, we have in his contract, he's allowed to talk about Tolkien at least once, and if he doesn't get to, there's something about a lawsuit. I don't know. We just haven't bothered to find out yet. So,
But there are 2. There's the role playing Lord of the Rings, which is a bit more of the established story. You kind of get to experience the narrative that's already there, which is great for people that are fans of it.
Yeah.
I think the one that's really like the most intriguing to me is The One Ring, and they're both done by a producer called Free League.
Yeah.
But The One Ring is completely original, and they've got a bunch of expansions on stuff that really helps the lore buy in. But it is completely open. There's not really the narrative you have to follow.
well, and that one's been growing a lot.
Yes.
Like I keep seeing things.
Well, and I
on that.
just saw a Kickstarter for, I think, Moria.
Yeah.
For an expansion, like within the last
they've
year.
already got a lot of expansions
Yeah.
and stuff for that one specifically. Like, it's crazy because that's actually like one of the only RPGs I do not have the book for.
Yeah. I looked at it to get the core set and all of the like already out or planned expansions. It's gonna cost a fair amount of dollars that I don't think bartering is gonna get me. But because I think the core book's like 80, and then each expansion's like 30 or 40, and they've got like 5 or 6 of them out there. But,
so you're paying a pretty penny.
yeah, but I mean, it's like trying to buy like a jacket or a sweatshirt that has a sports logo on it. You're paying whatever the cost of the jacket was, plus the licensing fee to have that. So your $30 sweatshirt's now $85, and that's kind of what you have to do with Lord of the Rings.
Not to mention, and this is with every gaming company, that the more popular something is, the higher they jack the price up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the setting of the One Ring takes place, like 25 years after the events of The Hobbit, right? So it's in between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, so it's kind of set in its own little like timeline there to where you, like I said, you aren't set within the narrative, whereas the Lord of the Rings role-playing is you're picking basically the Fellowship and you're playing through the story. But the One Ring, you get like full freedom.
I've been wanting to run a one shot that's Lord of the Rings based.
Yeah.
And all.
One of the reasons the One Ring was going to be one of mine too, and one of the reasons was because from everything I've seen, it's a heavy role play, light combat, where most of the time, because combat is so deadly and dangerous, you're trying to add to story and avoid combat a lot of times, which I love the idea of just having more time in my character in Middle-earth.
Yeah. There are the consensus behind them is the role playing, like Lord of the Rings role playing is for your Tolkien head, your Lord of the Rings, your Middle-earth head that I want to play the story.
Yeah.
The One Ring is a definitive, like, best beyond anything Middle-earth role-playing experience, like, bar none. So that's like, ooh, interesting.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lord of the Rings, Jeremy, you were at the Shire not too long ago.
I did. I got to go to Hobbiton.
And he
New
didn't
Zealand.
take me, and I am still very furious. But
Trust
I think
me, I'm right there, man.
I think we set up a goal
if you check
that
under the table, there is a I don't know if I can say that on here. So
I think we set our 50th birthdays.
50th birthdays, yeah.
I told my wife, and she was very surprised that I was making plans for my 50th birthday.
That might be the longest ahead that you've planned for anything, I would assume.
I mean, probably. If we're being honest, probably. Where I struggle to find out what I'm doing the day after, like tomorrow.
What you should do is get a calendar for the year that you turn 50 and then give that to Megan and just be like, hey, these are the dates.
Well, because if we're doing that...
Please remind me.
If I'm going over the hill on Edoros, we're doing like the full 4-week venture. It's like a $12,000 trip, like just ridiculous. But it is a guided tour throughout New Zealand when the normal trip is like a week and a half, I think is the guided one, but they have a really long one. Yep.
Yeah.
That's where I'll just... be at peace.
I also think I would love to turn 11-1 in Hobbiton.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually guessed Rick's thing, and I have my Gandalf pipe on set.
Oh, I noticed it the minute I came down here.
Oh, I figured you did, but I brought it down because of that.
He's got for the non-visual element of a audio podcast, he has his tamping tool for putting the tobacco in the pipe too, so he really went
I've
all
got
in
the
on
whole
it.
thing here. As for me, I own this game, but I've never played it. And I really want to be a player in it more than an actual game master. I'm used to being the game master in most of this stuff because I'm the guy with all the books. If Jeremy ever needs a book or is looking for a new RPG, he basically comes to me like I'm a library. Except he doesn't have a library card, and I don't have a return fee policy, so...
Whoopsies.
No, for me, it's definitely Vampire the Masquerade. So I really like the idea of like playing this kind of underworld sort of thing going on at night and such, where you're playing as vampires trying to maneuver around the real world without being noticed by others, and while trying to up your coterie and take down other coteries. And there's a bunch of different ways that I've listened to other people play it. There's some people who play it similar to the typical RPG concept, where it's like, hey, you're a group together, so you're like one coterie together, and you're a team. Then there's others who've played it where essentially you are your own separate group, and you can, each of you, like, the game happens during meetings and such. So you guys come up with actions of what you do between the next time you all run into each other, while trying to undermine each other secretly without openly going to war.
See, I feel like that is a bit more vampiric.
It is.
The idea, like, a coven, if you will, it seems in most traditional vampire lore and, like, media that you see, it definitely feels like it's more of a bit more conspiratorial.
It is.
Like, rogue-ish, if you will. So I like that latter option of that
well,
style
and
of
there's
play.
there's like then also in there some of the enemies are other typical things, like they have stats for werewolves and such, but like the main villains to the vampires, aside from the fact you have two different groups. You have essentially one group that I can't think of what it's called. I apologize. Someone can fix it in the comments for me. But they follow essentially the prince, who's either elected or has earned his title, and they are working to keep the vampire life secret. It's kind of an organized group, and then you have essentially an anarchist-like group of vampires that are more rogue. They're also trying to keep secret, but they don't agree with the other group because they have so many rules and ways to kill you if you break any of the rules.
Something Volturi Twilight, right?
Kind of, yeah. It's exactly.
Yeah, when do they... are there mechanics in there for the baseball game?
No. But the other main villain is actually mankind itself. So there's like been a secret organization for years that have gone under different things through the church or through the government, depending on what time period it is, that are actively looking for and hunting.
I'm sold.
You guys.
Yeah, well, one of
cool.
the coolest things, because I've watched a couple, I've watched a bit of a campaign of, Vampire the Masquerade with Kyle on YouTube, and one of the cool game mechanics I see is the simplicity of, fail or success.
Yeah. Which is pretty common in actually a lot of RPGs that are not based around the D20 system.
Yeah, and I'm so used to the D20 system in D&D and being like, oh, well, you got to add your this and you add your that, and you got to look for this, and you have to find out what your score is. And, oh, wait, do you have proficiency? Oh, wait, is it advantage? Could you explain, like, the Vampire the Masquerade one? Because it's, or like, kind of the idea of it?
Well, you have blood dice and hunger dice. They're essentially D8s. You can either just use regular D8s or you can buy the special kind that come with it. And that kind of determines when you're using your powers if you end up gaining a hunger point or whatnot, how successful you are. I honestly, because I've never played it myself, do not know the rules as well as I should.
I have one question to add to that, because it seems like in the games you mentioned, a lot more story-based. Is that what
From everything I'm seeing, it's definitely much heavier role-play-wise.
That's cool. That's really
and
cool.
I like the idea that you can possibly have, like, a role-playing versus game and all. I think that's a cool idea. But I don't know anyone who's willing to put in the time to study the whole book aside from me.
As somebody who already plays with blood-stained D&D dice, I love the idea of blood dice.
They're pretty cool.
Not real blood. I bought them that way.
These are made out of they're blood
I didn't
crystals.
bloodstain my dice.
I think if we ever play, Kyle, and we come over here, I just picture like we all bring like an appetizer to eat, and each of us has to bring something that has garlic in it, and every time we go, oh no.
I also so I've been kind of perusing the Free League developers as I've been listening and participating here. They have an Alien RPG.
They do.
And I am already absolutely terrified of that.
That would be amazing.
That's actually one I really want to play too. I actually wrote the rules a few years back for my own Alien RPG. I think I found them, like, I don't know where they're at now, but like last year or something when we were moving stuff around, I found it in a random box. And I was like, why didn't I complete this? This was actually getting pretty good. You know?
Yeah, you had that. You also were writing the rules to a superhero villain
Heroes
RPG.
and villains, yep.
And then you've thought about doing a Dragon Ball one too.
I've got a lot of, like, if you were to just go through my papers, you probably would find a game of every like thing you've ever heard of, like halfway written and just wondering, why did he stop? Probably because it was the next paper after that I went to.
I do that a lot, but it's with creating a MOBA from different franchises, like a massive
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, what would a 3-laned game with Game of Thrones characters look like? Who's the Guardian? And all of these go.
They
assassins.
actually had a computer game that was a Game of Thrones one that was similar to some MOBAs, and it was very much kind of that, like, point and click, like drag to grab your units, and you could go to the castles and attack and do diplomacy, but you were trying not to cause war. Like, the game ends if you cause war. Chris played it with me one time. It was awful because it clearly was not finished when they sent it out.
So I gotta ask, what's a MOBA?
League of Legends.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Active Valor, that kind of stuff. But so I'll sit there and I'll build each class, assassin, jungler, like all these things, but I do it for like Game of Thrones, for Marvel, for different franchises. I'll do that, and Jeremy's caught me doing this several times. I will make my own magic cards for different franchises as well. So I've got one for Dune and one for Legend of Zelda, and I just started one for Power Rangers.
When you say magic, like for Magic the Gathering?
Magic the Gathering,
okay.
yeah.
I've had a few ideas on things for that as well.
My wife has had to listen to me tell her these ideas, and I can see her eyes just absolutely gloss over, and she's doing her best to just appear like she's listening, but you can just tell that it's going straight through.
What'd you say, like, last time? You're like, God bless her.
Yeah, God bless her, and God bless me that I still get to have her.
Yeah, my wife says a lot of times, I'm glad you have friends you can talk about this with.
Have you ever seen that? There's a like I think you call like a subreddit like custom magic, where people make that. Some of them are actually like pretty good, and some of them are hilarious.
Yeah, there's a couple Instagram accounts that I follow of people who will proxy cards, and it's like, I might have to buy some of these because that card's dope. And it's really just a reprint of another card, so mechanics all work. The art just is dope.
So, just I know we only got like a few minutes left here, but what's your thought on proxy cards? Like when people say like, I don't own this card, but I want it in my deck, so I printed it out and I put it in a sleeve.
I mean, if you pay for the proxy card, it's almost virtually the same. I feel like in order to be able to like play a proxy, you got to have the original.
Yeah. Well, I've got a buddy who apparently like printed out a bunch of proxy cards, except like from my understanding, it's not even like on cardboard, like the card-based paper. It's legit just like printed out, I think, on printer paper and then put into sleeves.
Excellent.
And I've told him, I'm like, I'm not going to play that deck because if we're going to do that, I may as well print off all these cards that I can't afford for my vampire deck.
Yep.
And several people here have played against my Sorin vampire deck. That is not one that needs me to add extra cards to it.
I think it should be the case, kind of like Warcraft 2, where when you type in a cheat code, all of your enemies get the same cheat code. You print out proxy cards, oh wait, I get to print them out too.
Surprise, my Relentless Rats deck is now all rats and lands. Good luck.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes.
Well, on that note, thank you guys for listening to Tabletop Talk. Be sure that you like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next week. On that note, we love you and peace.
Hasta luego!
Don't make up words, Jeremy.
Well, we just lost some of our Spanish speaking.
We lied. They aren't here. They left
listeners.
when you said you liked the Acolyte.